Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So today I'll be doing a panel discussion with you all. And with you all means that I have a panelist, but this is a discussion for us. Today I will be discussing our city, Karachi. And that will be my discussion topic. And what I will be discussing about Karachi, before that, I want to show you a video. I will warn you that it's little disturbing for some people. It can be little disturbing for some people, but it's important that we should look at this reality and then let's discuss about it. So if you can allow me to share my screen, please.
Temperature is 42 degrees centigrade, but it feels like 50. It feels like hot air trapped somewhere and unable to escape. Similarly, Karachi for the past 4 years feels like a furnace and experiencing severe heat waves. Experts relate this extra warming up to a phenomena called heat island effect.
Heat island effect is basically an urban phenomena. The temperature within the urban landscape increases by a few degrees from what it normally should be. And, so the heat that is generated from the buildings and also the heat, for example, that is generated from the exhaust of automobiles, it gets trapped within that dense built area.
One could say that global warming plus the heat island effect makes Karachi to one of the hottest places on earth.
In Karachi, when we had that heat wave a couple of years back, and we had more than 1,500 people dying, it was found that most of them were basically those that were the marginalized, that were on the streets and that were already, vulnerable to such a thing happening.
Unfortunately, what happened in 2015 was the heat wave coincided with the holy month of Ramadan. So in that case, because the people were fasting, so there were a lot of casualties and a lot of serious cases. And we are lucky enough this year that heat wave has started after the month of Ramadan.
Local authorities had to arrange many dozens of water camps to bring relief.
We have established about more than 125 camps, heat camps, in different districts of Karachi.
Some basic instruments that could turn Karachi into a greener and cooler metropole are lacking.
So, all the causes are there. One major protection that we have against increase in temperature is green cover, which conditions the temperature. And in Karachi, the green cover, of course, as everybody knows, is disappearing. So in terms of transport, is a city, it's almost criminal that a city for over 20 million, you don't have a public transit system. Everybody is in their automobile. So yes, all these things are very likely to increase related with climate change. Not many people know that according to the Economist magazine's Global Livability, Index, Karachi now is 137 out of 147 countries that they, looked into in terms of livability. So the whole mindset needs to change.
This is Noreen Shams reporting for Cool Down the Planet in Karachi, Pakistan.
So you saw this video, and it's like the horrible facts. What is happening to our beautiful city? Today I wanted to discuss about this particular subject, about especially that how the environment is affecting our beautiful city. I have a wonderful panelist and I selected them on a particular criteria. It's with all due respect to everyone, DTM Samir Hamid Dodi, I selected him personally because I saw him a very senior person who knows Karachi probably. He lived all his life here. I can feel that, you know, he can give a lot of insight about this particular subject. DTM Samir Dodi is a graduate engineer. He's an entrepreneur. He is running his own business. He's involved with several business and social organizations, association. His personal passion is working with various civil advocacy group as a volunteer. He has been a Toastmaster since 2005, and in 2019, Toastmaster International appointed him as the first district director of District 122 TC, first district director of 122. District was the first in the world to become Smedley Distinguished. So welcome, DTM Samir. Thank you for joining this panel. I have another very distinguished panelist with me is TM Urusa Kawal, our past president. She is joining. To select her, it's not because I want to balance this panel with a lady, but because she knows she have the experience from Dubai and Karachi. So I want to know a little bit of that comparison, that how she find this particular issue. So TM Urusa Kawal, she's our past president, and as I told you, she is the division director since mid-2021, a former auditor turned wordsmith. Thank you for joining us, TM Urusa Kawal. Thanks for joining this panel. And my third panelist, which is a very special person, because we've been connected a lot in our Toastmaster meetings with an evaluation or with a speech, but also he is representing here, I'm not saying that he's representing the government, but he works as a civil servant. So I want his perspective also, in particularly on this particular subject. When he looked at the situation in Karachi, how he feel about it. So he is basically, you know, his profile is very, very important for us. He did his MSc in disaster management from UK, government servant. He's working on governance and management issues with government of Balochistan, served as a district officer planning, director disaster management authority, additional deputy commissioner, and direct general in Balochistan province. Thank you, TM Asghar Ramzan, to join this panel. Thank you all. I hope this discussion will lead to a very positive thoughts, and we will find out, we will identify some insight on this particular subject. So let me start with DTM Samir Hamid. When you looked at this video, what the first thing came to your mind? If you recall your years in Karachi, what is the first thing came to your mind?
Well, thank you very much, Toastmaster Meghani. All I can say is that this was expected. It's something like a man who drives a car without brakes, and then he's wondering that, will I get into an accident? Yes, you will, eventually. So I think that Karachi has been very unfortunate, because I remember from my childhood that it was a very different city from what it is now. And this, maybe the Karachi that my father told me, was even more different. The biggest issue in Karachi is that we don't have a master plan. The growth is absolutely random. We have too many authorities. We don't have a central authority with a certain master plan for the whole city. DHA has its own, Port Qasim their own, KPT, and the main city has their own thing. So that's the first thing. There is no particular master plan for the city. Like if you go to other countries, you see that there are certain areas which have, say, like a commercial area, then residential. Here, it's absolute chaos. The second thing is, of course, the lawlessness of the government. By that, I mean that SPCA, Sindh Control, Sindh Building Control Authority, is a money-making institute. And when I say money-making, I mean billions. No building can go up in Karachi, main Karachi, without their say-so. And there's so much of illegal construction. There are construction on parks, all of the green areas, they've been busy destroying them. And this can only be done with the collusion of Who? The guards. The people who are supposed to guard the city, the government, they themselves are so busy destroying the city. And I'm not saying one or the other. People's Party, and I'll be very frank, People's Party has done their damage. MKM with the China cutting, even PTI people have been involved if you look at the background. So just don't tell me that one party or the other. Everybody who has a chance has used the city and has absolutely, I would say, ravished it, destroyed it. So this is a big thing. And this we need to, and we the citizens, we've been sleeping because unless the people really make a demand and tell the people that, okay, in your manifesto, what will you do to take our vote? Right now, we have a chance. So I think that this is one of the big things. So anyway, I can go on, but I think that I also want to go on to the green cover, but please let us panelists get a chance.
Yeah, let me come back to you on green cover and, you know, what the strategies, what we can do as a citizens and what we all can do together. Let me ask TM Arusa, you were there 80s and 90s, you were in Dubai. When you came to Karachi, how was the impression? And when you looked Karachi from there till now, what are the changes you witnessed, especially concerning the weather?
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Karim, for inviting me to this discussion. 80s and 90s, I have, let's say in Dubai, I've seen a lot of the usage of, let's say, cooling temperatures in Dubai. And Dubai obviously is a desert, right? So there needs to be these cooling systems. There need to be these systems that keep that area. Now coming to Karachi, we did not have in those times these things that would, you know, keep us cool. But the temperature that in those days in early 2000 was really, really good. It was, we would just walk freely in the summer. We would not care. Let's say we were young also. And the temperature and everything was really, really good, conducive. And since then, obviously, there has been a gradual degradation in temperature, in environment, in what we've seen in a lot of traffic conditions that have not improved, have just become, for worse, they've gone. And yes, the city is still livable. It is still a place where we can live and we can survive, but it's not healthy. It's not, there's a lot of pollution. And when I go back for a month or so, I change. I changed so drastically back there. So yes, the city really needs a makeover.
You know, it was very important that I picked the one point of view that, you know, livable. And we've seen in the video 143 out of 146. Yes. So that's our city, our beautiful city where we all grown up. And this is now that the level is coming up in the international reports. Let me move to TM Asghar Ramzan. You know, it's not that, you know, I will be directly targeting because you are a civil servant, but I want to know the insight, the issues the government is facing to tackle this particular issue. And I want to ask you specifically questions about, you know, urbanization. As DTM Samir was saying that there is no master plan. So how the government and the ministry when they looked at this issue, what is coming to their mind, how to resolve this issue?
Thank you very much. And you rightly mentioned that I'm not representing the government.
Yeah, no.
But I don't agree that DTM Samir is a senior person. I am, you know, always I am looking forward to learn from him. And yes, he is rightly over here. We both agree that he rightly mentioned at least some of the factors. Now, how the state wants to see it, I think state knows what's happening. State refuses to see it as they are happening. Either a state does not have a power to improve the thing, or in alliance, in unison with the other non-state organ or the people, and creating this mess. And creating it is a greater mess than it is now. But at the heart of the problem is what I call the political economy of climate change, political economy of environmental degradation. Let's look at this. Karachi is basically a low-income city. Karachi has a health problem, clean water issues. Karachi has an electricity issue. Karachi, as you rightly mentioned, urban transportation issue. Now, this climate change or the heat wave, because you are not specific in your question, so I will take it as a heat wave because the video, if you are referring the discussion with the video, so that is heat wave. Now, when it comes to heat wave, now see that the climate change is combining with the economic constraint. People are living in a financially unstable condition. They're living in an impoverished neighborhood with poorly ventilated house. Now, who forced them to do? Why they were not able to improve their lives? I think it is something to do with the political economy of the heat wave or the climate change. What need to look there? Now, one of the things is the regulatory authorities. They are not failed, they are collapsed. As DTM Samir mentioned, at least one of the name. And I'm very much agree with him. Yes, Karachi has master plan, but Karachi has more than, I think, 3 master plan from 50s, and one is still under consideration. So when you have a 3 master plan, then you in effect has no master plan. And if you don't have a master plan, then growth is random. And I think one of the, now what a state should do, a state should, it is basically a governance issue. A state should do the things more than from multi-dimensional ways. The institution, the restructuring of the institutions, the way they built their institution, a political will for the restructuring of that institution, the accountability of that institution is some of the things which can be done to improve the lot. Otherwise, as Samir referred as Father's Karachi, believe me, it is going to be a messier by the day if no one interferes.
Very, very interesting points you raise here, TM Asghar. I think that, you talked about governance, you talk about political will, but I think, I just want to argue on this particular word about low income city. Why I'm saying this? My argument that Karachi is not a low income city, but the income is not being dispersed properly. I think that's my feeling is. DTM Samir, do you agree on it, this particular thing?
Why? Yes, up to an extent, it's absolutely true. Look, there are 2 or 3 reasons. First of all, of course, the population of Pakistan is growing rapidly, and a lot of people from rural areas are coming to cities for the earning. So I would say it's not like, it's just low income, but I would say it's 2 income. In one side, it's people like me. Hey, let's face it, who have money, who can, afford a house, stay in a place. But if you look at the vast majority of people, their lives are quite miserable. They're living in congested places, in Kachi Abadis and other places. So it's not just low income, but I would say 2 income. And again, I cannot agree with Toastmaster Asghar more when he says it's a governance thing. Do you know that SPCA, before it was KBCA, every officer of any repute, you know what they did when they went for retirement? They didn't live in Karachi. They all went to Canada. I can tell you dozens of these guys who are sitting in Canada with their families after they've made the money here, and they made lots of money. So my thing is that it's not just low income, it's not resources. Okay, there is an issue, but that's not the main issue. The main issue is the political will and the rot. And I blame the citizens too, because nobody cares. Nobody cares. That is one of the things. If you look at some of the others, even low income cities in the world, where there was a well, like Singapore at one time, do you think there was super duper had a high income? Okay, they were a city state, but the leadership there said, okay, we're going to make this happen. And Singapore is a city state or a country that has very limited water, but they still, the prime minister said that I'm not going to have a park within a city. He says, I'm going to have a city within a garden. If you go to Singapore, in spite of it being water deficient, you see, greenery everywhere. But that man had a vision while we had none. Please.
Thank you. Thank you, DTM Samir. Very interesting that, the conversation is going, but it seems that, from the last two arguments that, it's going to the political will and the governance. Now, but Arusa, now you from UAE and Pakistan, you saw the governance in Dubai, the systems, and in Pakistan. What are the things, you can highlight from your experience?
As per the governance, I'd say the UAE is a younger country compared to Pakistan. Pakistan has had its independence earlier, right? So they have basically obviously the systems of ruling the countries are different. There they have a different system of ruling. We have a different system of ruling. But there, the rulers are really, committed to their countries. They are committed to their goals. Especially if you talk about Dubai, it has seen a lot of development in terms of tourism, also in terms of if you go and look at the city, it's highly developed compared to the other 7 Emirates. So if you read the history of Dubai, if you get a book or something, you'll read that the ruler of Dubai, he used to have this idea of giving up land and having it developed by other people of the other Emirates, anyone. And that caused, what you would say, it snowballed the development quite quickly in the country. So we we do it mostly for money purposes, but they actually did it for development purposes. And that had, I've seen a lot of development in Dubai, Sharjah, not in Abu Dhabi that much. Abu Dhabi is the capital, there wasn't much development there, but Dubai and Sharjah is developed like that mostly. And I hope you can, yes, please.
No, I completely agree. Just I'm realizing that maybe Dubai and Karachi is not the right comparison that, when you
no,
say
it is actually, because both are port cities, and both are port cities, and they both have the same kind of metropolitan crowd. Both countries, both cities will go to both cities to earn money, and they are really inhabited by people who have this motivation to earn and live a better life. Even Karachi has the same kind of focus. But in terms of environment, yes, we've been lagging behind a lot.
Okay, TM, thank you very much, TM Arusa. That was very, very clear. But TM Asghar, that now if everything moves back to the government or the governance, you said that we need to have political will, you need to have governance issues, but I think there is some role of civil organizations and civic duties also. I feel that, there is some role people need to play also. How we can make this bridge between the people and the government to improve this situation? In your opinion, say your mic.
Well, I think there is a trust deficit between the people and the state, especially the state like we have in the developing countries. That trust need to be built in order to go forward. For example, if you want to reduce the exposure and vulnerability, in order to reduce this issue, you need people. If you need to assess the risk of the heat wave or the climate change, you need the help of the people. Even if you want to clean your drainage system, you need to you need a connection with the stakeholders. But what we are seeing is quite contrary. You need special planning, but when it comes to the special planning, as DTM Samir rightly pointed out, the regulatory authorities collusion in order not to do it, because it is not their interest to do so. Now, if we need a flood defense even around the city, or if we need a green cover for the city, we need the help, the trust of the people. this trust has to be built by the state. It is the responsibility of the state to build that trust, because a state is operating at a level above to the people. Now, this disjoint is still going on. As long as this disjoint is there, at least I individually don't have any hope for any move forward. Over to you.
No, thank you very much. But I think that, we need to find some solution. It seems that, if we are waiting for the government and the authorities or the governance to solve these issues, we will be just sitting. We'll be not doing anything. I was looking at, when I was looking at the heat wave, particular this heat wave issue, there was one thing came, the issue is urbanization planning and urban heat island. So what they are saying that, because we increased so much concrete, we didn't balance this with the nature, with the green cover. Now, if we see this example in China, if you see this example in Singapore, one of the panelists mentioned it, they were thinking about green cover even on the concrete. DTM Samir, do you think that, there are some hope is there? Is still some people are doing something? Or you observe this in Karachi?
Look, the point is that, yes, of course. I have been involved with a number of tree plantations, plantings and all. And again, the thing is the ownership, because you see what doesn't work and what you mostly say is this, okay, we'll plant 1,000 trees, and they plant them. And I can tell you that within 3 months or 6 months, they'll all be dead or stolen or whatever. What you need to do is to build up some kind of relationship with the residents in an area that, okay, we'll give you trees, we'll help you with this, and you have to take care of them. These are you have to take ownership of this green cover, because eventually it's going to be your life. And I cannot give you a better example that once I was involved with, an NGO, and we gave this old gentleman about, I think it was 400 trees. And it was, he built them in the Askari 4, I think Askari something or the other. He used to live in these apartments. And what he did is that he and these other old gentlemen, they made sure the trees were planted. They used to go and visit every day, in the walk, and make sure that, the gardeners and all, they took care of the trees. And there was almost 95% survival. While in most of the other tree plantations, you're lucky if there's only 5%. So I think what the message needs to go out, and especially to the younger people, is that plant a tree, save your life. And when you plant a tree, make sure it's your tree. Don't just say, okay, we planted it, I've taken a photo, okay, bye, I'm gone. That will never work. What is going to work is that they take ownership that this is my tree and I'm going to see it grow. And I do not know how to put it, but at one time we had civics, and I don't know if any of you remember, we had civics in school. Now we just have religion, I guess, Islamiyat. But the point was that was one of the things that was taught, that you need to be civil, that you need to take the society and you, there's a bond between you. And that is something that we need to kind of build up once again.
It's a very important point about, the NGO and the civil society organizations. Do you, TM Murusa, do you observe some civil society organizations which are doing some good work in this particular domain?
Well, in Karachi, I think there are many organizations that are doing these kinds of works, like cleaning the beaches and planting green trees and all that. Yes, there are quite a few.
But it's not enough, it seems that,
It's, well, I guess it all depends on the volunteers that they can gather. Not everyone, I feel, is geared towards working in such, setups. NGOs, they obviously drive their workforce from people who are passionate, and if there are no people who are passionate enough, then obviously, then we will be falling short.
Yeah, I think that, civil society need to play a very important role. And if we see the examples of globally, the world itself, that where there are good examples, there are best practices which we can adapt. And one of the things is that civil society need to be activated as soon as possible, because the governments cannot handle these issues. I'm right on this, TM Asghar? I think one of the things, it's TM Asghar, this is the last question for you, and then we will go to the audience if they have any question anybody wants to ask. When we talk about the government and the civil society bonds, how to build partnerships. Did you observe that, in the current system of governments, we are having this kind of bonds with civil society?
Yes, we didn't have. That is why, but I always said that we need we need a trust between both of the parties. But I think gradually this trust is building, at least at organizational level. We are increasingly seeing PPP mode, public-private partnership mode. This is one of the way, at least that for the non-governmental organization to have a contact with the government at certain level. I think after this level comes then the stakeholders, and currently all 4 provinces have their own act for public-private partnership. And there are a lot of environmental organization. For example, in Karachi, I know the Shehri, one of the gentlemen was in a video. I know him, he's from Shehri, an organization called Shehri. This Shehri organization is very rich in terms of the money, but it is always stands against the government, even from the Kausji days. I mean, the government is not ready to talk with this organization, and this organization is not ready to talk with the government, because the 50% of the efforts this organization expert is to find out the government and then criticize it rather than doing his job. And wherever he was doing his job, he did it rather wonderfully. I really appreciate this organization, the people who are connected with it. But I always, as an organization, I always found this organization standing the opposite of the government, and the government is always busy to undermine it rather than working with it. I mean, this can be a prototype, a classic case of how the private organization and the government organization are not ready to sit together. But I think with the passage of time, I see this in KPK and Punjab at least. People there are ready to sitting with the government and exploring the opportunities, and they are meeting in the middle ground and exploring the opportunities regarding their common interest. And it's a good omen. I think it will be done in coming decade at least.
Thank you very much, TM Asghar. That was very insightful. I think that, in the interest of time, I can take one question, I think, from the audience. If anybody would like one question to the panelist. Okay, maybe I can see TM Heba raise her hand. Yeah, TM Heba, you would like to ask a question?
Yes, I have unmuted.
You can sit right there because the camera is pointing.
We can hear you. We can hear people. Yeah.
Okay. I had a question to TM Sameer that you mentioned about the government, all the corruption and all, and how everything it leads to, the environmental damages.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get your question. I'm so sorry.
I think you have to come forward.
A little bit closer.
Yeah, a little bit closer.
By the way, TM Asghar, I'm also involved with Shehri, so I know very much about them. But but the thing is, you see, one of the things that people always, they're anti-development, they're this, that. But how can you condone maybe some guy who's taken over a park or who's making an illegal building, and you go to the government and they're trying to protect that person? So there's a conflict. Of course, there's a conflict. But and that is why there were so many court cases done by Shehri regarding so many of these matters, quite frankly. Because otherwise, if you just write a letter to them and you tell them, yeah, this is something going on wrong, and instead of them taking your side, they're on the other side fighting with you, what's going to happen? Please.
I totally agree. I totally agree with you, Sameer. I totally agree. I really appreciate it, Shehri.
I understand both of you.
Okay.
Yes,
Sorry.
yes, yes.
I had to go along with the question. Okay, I had a question for DTM Samir. You mentioned about the government, and how all the corruption leads to the, there's a lot of mismanagement in the government, and how it eventually, because they don't eventually end up doing work for the environment. So it's a sort of a minor contribution towards the environmental damage. But how about we, what do you think that we as individuals are also contributing towards the environmental damage? Like, littering, for instance, littering on a small level. And then how should we, take steps to contribute towards the environmental preservation? Because the government is the major aspect, but there's the minor aspect of, how about we, because the government will do what they want to. We cannot change the government's perspective. We as individuals should rather take action. What do you think about that? Because the government,
We got your question.
Look, TM Hiba, I absolutely and totally agree with what you're saying. And let me give you a very small example. When I'm traveling in Germany, you don't usually even have people checking the tickets in the, train or underground or whatever. Sometimes you do. And what I found is that everybody has a ticket, even though nobody checks them 9 times out of 10, or even maybe they check after every 1 month. And one of the Germans told me that here, it is the attitude, because if you are stealing from the state, it means you're stealing from the other commuters. And even, then your friends, the people around you, they look down upon you. Here, if you do something, people say, "Yaar, kitna aqlmand hai. Are yaar chori, are yaar bahut acha kiya. Yaar kunda laga diye, kya baat hai?" Or you do this, kya baat hai, kya baat hai? So I think that this is the attitude that we, the citizens, have to change. We have to change our attitude that when we are doing something bad, as you say, littering, or maybe we say, okay, let's steal a plant that's on the tree. Yaar, mujhe acha lagta hai, chal main tod ke le aun. We are damaging the society. So I think that this is something that this has to be a change in our mind. And I think that this has to start from school, teaching the kids that, okay, that you have a civic duty to society and vice versa. I don't know how to install that, but that has to be there. It has to start from the younger generation, because I think the older ones, they are quite set in their ways. So I hope I answered your question. And sorry, one more thing. This is my open thing, offered to anybody here. If indeed any of you know of an area that needs 50 or 100 saplings, and you can give me a guarantee that we will look after these trees, I can help you get the saplings for free. But the point is that your surety is that we are going to take care of them, and we'll make sure they're not destroyed or dying out. So one thing you can take from me, from this session, I'll be there to provide the saplings and the trees. Please.
I was about to ask the last comment from each of the panelists, and you already given it. But TM Hiba, thank you for this question. Let me get the last comment from TM Arusa and TM Asghar after.
My last comment would be, we should be more, I think the crux of all the discussion is we should be more careful about our social responsibility and the environmental responsibility to control this climate change. Over to you, Mr.
TM Asghar.
Well, I think rather than depending on a state, we need to connect ourselves with non-governmental organization. We can work better with the NGOs, either international NGOs or local NGOs. Once we are able to stand on our feet as a community, as an organization, then we will go to the state and put its demand. We can fight with the state only when we are powerful. Otherwise, a state refuses to listen its weak segment of the society.
Thank you, TM Asghar. That was phenomenal. I think that, the thoughts, the process, and, your experience, what you shared today. I think I just summarize in 2 lines that, we have to do something. That is the only sentence I tell myself, that I have to do something. And one of my effort as an overseas Pakistani, you know, when I see Karachi situation, when I see this particular scenario, what I can do, I can communicate this panel discussion into my YouTube channels and in whatever social media I have, and I can share with them that, you know, what are our thoughts about it. I love the thought when DTM Samir said that we have to work with the children, we have to work with the early level. And that, let's say that, you know, the school systems, what we can do, TM Arusa, you also said the same thing, that, you know, we have to individually do something. And TM Asghar, civil society, I think this is the solution. In any place, the government cannot do everything. We have, as a citizen, we have to do something. Thank you very much, three of you, to participate in this panel discussion. Wonderful learning. Thank you very much, all the Toastmasters who are very patiently listened the whole meeting, in fact. And thank you very much for your participation. Over to you, Toastmaster of the day.